Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some very interesting news in regards now to the changes of how Sony and some certain Sony, like basically studios, are going to be actually completely changing how they announce, release, and kind of go and change up how they're kind of promoting out their games. Now, this will be a very interesting article because we actually have one of the biggest PlayStation studios kind of discussing this and bringing up why they're making these kind of dramatic changes. And at the end of the day, I kind of really want to know your thoughts as we kind of go throughout the video of if you guys think this is a good idea, bad idea, or just don't really care at the end of the day. But I kind of feel like as we kind of look through this stuff and see this stuff, it's very intriguing to see how the marketing as well as also the release windows, and on top of this, kind of thinking like marketing crunch, game development crunch, and everything in between, and of how it's kind of affecting and changing the gaming industry as a whole. And this is mainly in effect for PlayStation, which actually does have quite a few studios that are known for generally treating their workers very good and trying their best to avoid specific types of crunch. So we're going to talk about this throughout the video, so make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We also do have some really cool also PlayStation kind of sales numbers too we're going to go throughout this video. And of course, follow the Twitter and Twitch stream down below. Target, Amazon links too as well if you guys want to check those on out and sign up for your basically early access for their buys, and let's go and dive into the video. So one big company, as I'm sure you guys may or may not know, is Naughty Dog, one of PlayStation's biggest studios, but as well we've kind of been seeing this kind of popping up a little bit more in other various gaming industries as of these past few, years. COVID and definitely a lot of remote work has changed up the expectations for dev cycles, how long it may take for things to get approved. Sometimes you also have to factor in things like sending over files and downloads and, kind of just communication things and all that all around. So we had a pretty big statement over here, and we've had a lot of news in regards now to Last of Us as well. If you guys saw our videos yesterday, we were seeing how like the game itself is kind of somewhat different than the show and a lot of other various things with it. But basically Neil Druckmann himself on why Naughty Dog hasn't actually revealed any of their PlayStation 5 games yet and kind of what's going on with them. Because as of right now, Naughty Dog is one of the biggest game studios that PlayStation has, and they're obviously working on something, just no one really knows necessarily on what. So basically, Druckmann has now been discussing kind of a big change, at least for their studio, kind of a big change on PlayStation stuff. This might be more of like a company effect too as well. So basically have Naughty Dog's tendency to announce games too far in advance, and has basically previously harmed the studio by letting people know about the game way too early, and then people kind of get that like weird awkward limbo where it's like, hey, Last of Us Part 3, I thought that's supposed to be coming soon, when the trailer was 3 years ago and it just never actually showed up. Or things like as of recently, we've seen a lot of this like upcoming Last of Us multiplayer project where a lot of folks are thinking like, oh, like is this game going to actually come? Is this actually like soon? Is it sooner than we think? Is it using old game engine so it's easier to make? Like what is going on with this game? And it's kind of been leading to a lot of like, just general people on Twitter being annoying, people sending questions, press, there's people kind of assuming the game itself is never going to happen. So in an interview with comicbook.com to promote The Last of Us on HBO, Druckmann had discussed how Naughty Dog's tendency to announce games too far in advance has actually previously harmed the studio. Naughty Dog specifically informed fans about what was being created for both Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and Last of Us 2 years before their eventual releases. Although these early announcements helped to generate buzz, Druckmann does not appear to want to do so again for the studio's next game. And I kind of like this because it kind of seems like Sony themselves, maybe they did a chime in too. Like I'll probably put maybe Sony in the title, more so because like it's literally a Sony big studio. It makes sense. So basically for that one, you kind of see like it's true. Like if you go and release things too early, there are certain games out there that I have seen trailers for, and I just know they're either not going to come out, or because it's been literally 5 years, whatever they showed in trailers or whatever they talked about before is going to be completely different. It's not going to be the same game. And if it is, I almost feel like you need to have an updated trailer. But let alone with all of that, sometimes those games, like they change or they have different studios and people working on the original trailer just go and quit. So sometimes you also need to have an updated trailer just to remind folks that this game even still exists in the first place. And then sometimes it leads in those things of like, oh, I really like the original trailer and I pre-ordered, and why is my game not still out? And I spent money 2 years ago, and why is Amazon holding my like $5 bonus? Like all this type of stuff. And it can really go negatively affect the PR. Because obviously if you have a game that's kind of like getting delayed over and over and over again, or if you release a trailer like 3 years ago and you have no update since, people are probably just going to assume the game itself is dead in the water. They go and say, you're right, we did announce Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2 way in advance. But that actually caused a little bit of the work-life balance issues that we've had sometimes at the studio. And it would also make sense too, because if you go and say a game's coming out in 2023, in theory, that's a pretty wide margin. But let's go and say your game could, in theory, also come out in 2024 in the first half, and then it kind of gets towards the Christmas time, it's getting closer to the holidays, like Q4, and then you realize, oh god, we said we're going to have this game come out in 2023. Now, obviously, like if you're 2 years or 3 years out, you can maybe assume because you have so many days with it, but a lot of unexpected things happen, or there's bugs, or there's issues, or maybe someone like quits that, kind of causes a slog, whatever it might be. Like, it happens all the time if you guys just do normal corporate life. So I know it's ever up with my webcam, sometimes it just turns off. But anyway, as I'm rambling, when it comes to this stuff, you can kind of just go and tell, is that when all of these different games come out, you need to have a good set expectation, because people get upset. And I think it's kind of one thing they're kind of changing over here. So they said this was also explaining, by delaying some of these announcements internally, so like they can make it public a bit, they could actually go play with their schedule more, and we could be more conscious about how we're approaching production. So there's our Last of Us multiplayer project, and there's another project that I will not even say anything about that's beyond that we're also very much excited for. Now, based on all the hype right now with The Last of Us Part 1 and 2, and also Last of Us multiplayer, either we're probably going to expect a new Uncharted, because Uncharted did very, very well in the box office, or we might be expecting maybe Last of Us 3. Like, we've been seeing a lot of like kind of teasers and talks in The Last of Us Part 3. That would make a lot of sense, at least in my mind, of them doing that as of now. Like, it really would just make a lot of sense. So we're kind of seeing this, and it seems like they're changing up their systems. They want to change up on when they announce games. They want to go and say they want to announce it closer. Where it says, it appears that the studio, and thus Neil Druckmann, want to now avoid any of these times of crunches or pressure on the team, and have chosen to announce things even closer to their eventual release for future titles. This may explain why we've only seen one concept art so far of The Last of Us multiplayer, which you guys can kind of see from some of these above. And also goes and shows that Druckmann has recently hinted that the story of The Last of Us does not yet feel complete, implying once again that The Last of Us Part 3 could be what Naughty Dog goes and tackles next, which would make a lot of sense. You have the multiplayer, the IPs being going kind of fresh, you have the show, but as well, my heart, I've never actually done a full playthrough of Uncharted before. My heart would love to have either an Uncharted remake/remaster, or a brand new like iteration and story with it going on. If you guys had a chance to go and see some of the actual multiplayer stuff, does look dope and does look cool, and I do like the idea of this game. If it kind of has a similar like maybe Division type vibe, or maybe like a Daisy, Escape from Tarkov, or whatever it might be, like a very, very scarce looter shooter, I'd be down. I think it'd be actually a really cool game. So it's interesting to go and see how Sony and PlayStation Studios kind of want to change their format. Kind of want to make things a little bit more closer to launch, kind of work through this dev crunch and not have to force people to have to work like 12-hour days just to get things all fully done and situated. And I kind of think this is actually a really good change of how they're going to be addressing their studios. I think it's nice. I think it's good for work-life balance. I think it's good to make sure our expectations are set. And as well, sometimes there has been games that even for Sony to kind of throw them a bone, they have been announced a little bit too early, and people kind of either lose hype or lose faith or just assume it's never going to come out. Happens a lot of games, I'm sure you guys know. So it kind of makes sense. That is actually a really good change and really good change up that Sony and PlayStation can do to, number one, make people more happy, but number two, make their devs happy, make their companies more happy, and as well, maybe even drive more sales. So kind of fun little news with that. Give me your thoughts down below. We also had some interesting news too. The PlayStation 5 was pipping up by the Nintendo Switch to be UK's actually best-selling console of 2022. So Sony's games chart pretty highly, which is very nice to see. So the PlayStation 5 has been named as UK's second best-selling console of 2022, beating out the Xbox itself. After it was overtaken by the Nintendo Switch at the very last second, less than 60,000 units separated Sony's system and the Nintendo Hybrid and Microsoft Xbox Series X consoles once everything was all toted up, making for a very close race for the top spot. However, PlayStation 5 sales were actually down by 33% this year, all compared to 2022 or 2021 due to ongoing stock issues. But it's still kind of crazy to see how well all three of these big gaming consoles have done, because it does seem like they're doing very well. So data compiled by the GSD states that 34.2 million games were sold in 2022 across both physical and digital means, which again tracks a drop of 6% compared to last year, which is also kind of weird too, because the markets have been kind of fluctuating, probably with ongoing issues with the economy or jobs or job loss, or just as well not as many big games coming out. Probably would affect a lot of that altogether. You guys can also go see too, because it was dropping. One big thing to say is that the purchase of older titles also dropped off. So while people also bought more new games, but say like these old school kind of classics, they're not really buying as much. So the UK market continues to skew digitally though, with nearly 20 million titles brought through digital marketplaces like the PS Store. Very interesting to see. So here's some of the top selling games in the UK. So we had FIFA 23 is number 1, Call of Duty as well, and then we have Lego Star Wars, which I'm still always surprised on, Elden Ring on number 4, very well-deserved game, Grand Theft Auto still after 10 years, God knows why, God of War Ragnarok, surprisingly not as good in the UK, but maybe it's more on the fact of just came out and more the tail end of the year, so it hasn't had time to get sales. FIFA 22, which is also funny too. We have both FIFAs. Horizon's still up there no matter what. Red Dead Redemption 2 as well, and Nintendo Switch Sports. So it kind of seems like in the UK, funny enough, those Nintendo games are not popping off as much as we'd also go and expect, interestingly enough. So give me your thoughts and comments down below. I do think these like big changes over here for these big PlayStation studios is going to be a very nice thing at the end of the day. So make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch stream down below if you guys want to go and follow. And of course, check out the Amazon and Target links too. And I appreciate you guys all so much for watching here in the first place.